All right, and welcome back to Bible Talks with Belinda. I am coming to you today from Genesis 4. This is going to be a Bible teaching on Cain and Abel. I was listening to a sermon earlier this week, and it was talking about the teaching was about the the mark of Cain, and it got me to thinking how Cain ended up, in this situation in the first place. Like let's kind of drill in on Cain and how he became the man that he became, right? So the Holy Spirit was was ministering to me, and so I went back and I read Genesis 4 again, and I had an aha moment, and I'm going to share that moment with you and what the Lord revealed to me while I was reading this. All right, so Genesis 4, it says, and Adam knew Eve his wife, and she conceived and bare Cain, and said, I have gotten a man from the Lord. Now, I have heard theologians say before that it's possible that Eve believed that Cain was the one to bring redemption to the fall of man. We know that to be Jesus, but you got to understand that, this is not, we don't, you got to understand, probably the the burden that was on Eve for her to have, done this and tricked the man, and all of humanity is lost, and so she's had Cain, and Cain is like, okay, this is the man that's going to bring redemption and free us from this curse. All right, so Genesis 3 and 15, we come here and it says, and I will put enmity between thee and the woman, between the serpent and the woman. Then it goes further to explain, and between thy seed and her seed. All right, it shall bruise thy head, and thou shalt bruise his heel. All right, so Jesus crushed the devil's head, defeating him forever. All right. So in Genesis 3:15, the crushing of the serpent's head was a picture of Jesus' triumph over sin and Satan at the cross. All right. And the striking of the Messiah's heel was a picture of wounding and death of Jesus on the cross. Satan bruised Jesus' heel, but Jesus showed complete dominance over Satan by bruising his head. All right. So when you go back to Genesis 4, you know, all Eve knows is that this, you know, a seed of hers, she didn't realize that it was going to be way generations way down the line. She's thinking this is Cain. He's going to be the one to redeem us. I have gotten a man from the Lord. All right. She again bare his brother Abel, and Abel was a keeper of sheep, but Cain was a tiller of the ground. All right, I'm gonna come back to that in a minute. And in the process of time, it came to pass that Cain brought of the fruit of the ground an offering unto the Lord, and Abel he also brought of the firstlings of his flock and of the fat thereof. And the Lord had respect unto Abel and to his offering. But unto Cain and to his offering he had not respect. And Cain was very wroth, and his countenance fell. And the Lord said unto Cain, why are thy wroth? And why is thy countenance falling? And if thou doest well, shalt thou not be accepted? And if thou doest not well, sin lieth at the door, and until thee shall be his desire, and thou shalt rule over him. And Cain talked with Abel his brother, and it came to pass when they were in the field that Cain rose up against Abel his brother and slew him. All right. And the Lord said unto Cain, where is Abel thy brother? And he said, I know not. Am I my brother's keeper? All right. And he said, what hast thou done? The voice of thy brother's blood cried up from the ground. And now art thou cursed from the earth, hath opened her mouth to receive thy brother's blood. When thou tillest the ground, it shall not henceforth yield unto thee her strength. A fugitive and a vagabond shall thou be in the earth. All right. So I got to thinking here back in verse 2. And she again bare his brother Abel, and Abel was a keeper of sheep, but this is a key word here, Cain was a tiller of the ground. And so I'm sitting here and I started thinking, and all of a sudden I'm like, hmm. Then I heard the Holy Spirit say, do you know how hard it was to till that ground? And then I paused and I went back here to 3, to where God cursed the ground. All right. So, and unto Adam he said, because thou hast hearkened unto the voice of thy wife, and hast eaten of the tree which I commanded thee, saying, thou shalt not eat of, cursed is the ground for thy sake. In sorrow shalt thou eat all the days of thy life. Thorns also and thistles shall it bring forth to thee, and thou shalt eat the herb of the field. And in the sweat of thy face shalt thou eat bread till thou return it to the ground, for out of it was taken, for dust thou art, until dust thou shalt return. So, now you got to reformat your mind here, because you got to realize this was the curse that God had put on the ground, and this is in between when God cursed the earth and the flood. All right. So I did another video on this channel called I think I was talking about that in the previous video, the sons of God and the mark of the beast. I can't remember. But you got to reformat your mind here to know that the earth changed after the flood. And I'm going to show you where God lifted the curse off the ground after the flood. All right. So I got to thinking, right? Why was Abel allowed to be a keeper of the sheep, but Cain was a tiller of the ground? So you would think, right? This would be shared duties or something, I don't know. We know that not Cain, Adam and Eve had other kids, but these were the first, we could say these were the first two born, right? um but why? So then I started going back and thinking about, okay, we know that Adam was, you know it's not like, okay, let me say this. It's not like in today's world, right, where you can, you grow up and your parents are asking you, what do you want to be when you grow up? So they try to, put you in different things to have you do different, um activities and stuff like that, to kind of mold and shape you, to try to figure out what would be good for you to do, like a good, parent would do, right? So more than likely, Adam was the one who assigned them their their duties, right? And you know, why we know that the ground, God had issued this curse on this ground, yielding forth thorns. You know how hard that is? So it makes me think that while raising Abel and Cain, Cain probably had been a rebel, most of his childhood and growing up and things like that. And he probably was kind of like, in a sense, but not in a sense, sentenced to hard labor, because why would you give something like that chore? We know that it was a hard thing to do. And keeping sheep, I'm not saying that's no easy task or anything like that, but you know, you out there tilling that ground and trying to bring forth the crop, and so when you come down here, it said in the process of time it came to pass that Cain brought of the fruit of the ground an offering unto the Lord. All right. So, and Abel, he also brought of the firstling. So he brought his firstlings of his flock, in the Old Testament, they tied the first fruit, the first grain, the first crop, everything that came first off the ground. But it doesn't seem like Cain did this. He just brought, what he had. But Abel brought his best, the first link of his flock and the fat thereof. So he didn't bring like a little, scrawny little, you know, the scrawny of his sheep and it's blemished and red, well, it's gonna be an offering usually got burnt as a burnt offering, right? And so but Cain brought his fruit, and I thought about that. Now why would Cain just not bring, it doesn't say he brought the firstling of his fruit, right? So he probably was like, man, listen, when this stuff come out, I'm gonna get the first of this because this is some hard labor, so I'm going to enjoy the fruit of my labor, and then I'm going to give what I give, right? Because God gonna understand that this is some hard work. I'm working harder than Cain. I'm tilling this ground, and this is understandable, right? All right. It says, but Cain also brought his offering. He had no respect. Why? Because he didn't bring the firstling of his fruit of the ground. And Cain got mad. He got mad because it's like, what you mean? Because this is, hey, I'm out here laboring. You didn't curse this ground, and I'm dealing with thorns and thistles out here, and he was angry. All right. All right. And also, God didn't have respect for his offering because this showed the heart of Cain. This shows where it revealed his heart to God. It's like, with God, you give God your best, right? You give God your the best of you, not the waste of you. You give God your you want God to know that you appreciate, you're grateful for the things he's given you. So therefore, I'm going to offer you my best. So that's why God didn't have respect for him, and it was for the offering, and it was very telling what was in Cain's heart because of the response that we see for God not accepting. God doesn't have to accept what we give him, right? And we can tell what was in his heart because right after that, he became very wroth. He became very angry, and his countenance fell. It's like his whole visage changed. And the Lord said unto Cain, why art thou wroth? Why hast thy countenance fallen? If thou doest well, shalt thou not be accepted? Like, hey, I'm going to give you another chance here for you to redeem yourself, give you some grace, you can redeem yourself, next crop season come around. Hey, you can bring an offering of your firstling and it could be accepted. All right. And it said, if thou doest not well, sin lieth at the door. And unto thee shall be his desire, and thou shalt rule over him. So, what can we take from that? We can take that he had another chance to redeem himself, but he didn't. So to me, I read into this that there came another time where there was another offering. All right. And he still refused to give his firstlings of his flock. I mean, not his flock, but the fruit of the ground, because it said, if thou doest not well. So something had to take place here. So it seems to me that there was another opportunity, and he did not do what he should have done for his offering to be accepted, and sin took over him because he kept bringing God what he wanted to do. All right, this is a parallel of what you see people do now. They live how they want to live. Be what they want to be. Do give God their doing and expect God to accept it, and then constantly living in sin and doing sin, and God is giving you chance after chance, and then sin overtakes you. All right. And until these shall be thy desire, and thou shalt rule over him. So this is sin. He kept doing what he wanted to do, kept giving God what he wanted to give God, and sin was there. It was waiting for him, and it overtook him, and it ruled over him. All right. So now you see Cain coming. Cain talked with Abel. All right. And it said, and Cain talked with Abel, his brother. All right. Now, it makes me wonder, what were they talking about? All right. Now you got to understand, now Cain, he has fallen completely into sin. So it may have been a disagreement about, it could have been about anything. All right. And it came to pass, here's the key, when they were in the field. All right. So Cain is out there, they were in the field. Now this seems to be Cain's territory here. And Abel was out there because sheep are really not there, more like what in pasture type, green lands. But Cain was in Abel's territory. All right. So maybe Cain was talking to Abel. It could have been some kind of, territorial dispute, or something like that, because it says Cain talked with Abel and his brother. All right. And it came to pass when they were in the field that Cain rose up against his brother and slew him. All right. So once again, sin had completely overtaken Cain. All right. And Cain and his brother had a conversation. They were in the field. Time had passed. All right. And the only thing I can think of is that something territorial happened. All right. Because why didn't this happen, in the house or in their hut or in the pasture, or in it made a point to state that they were in the field, and Cain rose up against Abel his brother and slew him. All right. And the Lord said unto Cain, where is Abel thy brother? All right. And it makes me wonder if he buried Abel. All right. Because we know he was a tiller of the ground. And God is asking him, where is your brother? All right. And he said, I know not, am I my brother's keeper? All right, so this response here, you have to, I mean, this can be a video all on itself because Cain was the firstborn son. You know, he was the firstborn human ever. Cain, I mean, Adam and Eve were basically created, but Cain was the firstborn human in the image of man, right? So not only should you be the your brother's keeper, but you should be like the keeper of all of humanity. This was a rejection of his rightful position to be his brother's keeper. So I'm sure that Adam explained to him the significance of you being the firstborn man ever, and how great that responsibility is, and how you are going to be remembered throughout all of humanity, and here all your siblings are coming after you. And I can only imagine the expectations that his family had of him. And it's just as if you know he's telling God, now, am I my brother's keeper? Well, yeah, actually you are, but now he responds in this arrogant manner. He said, what has thy done? All right, the voice of thy brother's blood cried unto me from the ground. So he had actually buried his brother. He knew how to till that ground, and he knew at least how to get that dirt up. He had buried his brother. He had tried to hide what he had done. All right, as if nobody was going to find out, but the eyes of the Lord knows. All right, trying to even give him, even in God's mercy and his grace, trying to get him to confess his sin. And this is what you see with people who have been overtaken by sin. They won't confess. They won't, here God is trying to give him a chance to confess his sins, to admit his wrongdoing. One of the things that we have to do is be willing to humble ourselves down to be able, Lord, I did this. Lord, I know I'm wrong. I know I'm a sinful man. Forgive me, Lord. Have mercy on me. This was Cain's time to ask for mercy and ask for forgiveness and to confess his sin, but yet he responds, am I my brother's keeper? you know I don't have to take, I'm not accountable for him. He's his own person, he's his own man. I'm me, I'm doing me. All right. And now art thou cursed from the earth, which hath opened her mouth to receive thy brother's blood from thy hand. All right. So now, when thy tillest the ground, it shall not henceforth yield unto thee her strength. So, no matter where he went now, before he was dealing with thorns and thistles, at least he got something out of the ground. All right. Thorns, also thistles, shall it bring forth to thee, and thou shalt eat the herb of the fruit. So at least he was getting something out of the ground. But now nothing is coming out the ground. All right. And a fugitive and a vagabond thou shalt be in the earth. I did another video on this channel about Cain, and it was called Why I Don't Watch Van Life Car Life videos anymore. Something like that. It's in my video list. And the Lord revealed to me that the vagabond spirit lies on a lot of those people. Now, some of the people I did explain in the video, they there's plenty of people that have lived in cars and vans, and it was a temporary last resort. They didn't have any other options. I completely understand that. But some of those people, and that spirit is emanating from YouTube, because those people have a spirit, a vagabond spirit on them. And that's how you saw car life videos and van life videos getting so popular. But a lot of people didn't realize the Holy Spirit had to reveal to me that what was behind all of that. So moving on, because I don't want to get caught up in that, because I've already done a video on that. All right. So he said, and Cain said unto the Lord, my punishment is greater than I can bear. Like, my goodness, before I was out here slaving to get you an offering, and it was hard. But now you're telling me that I'm not going to be able to yield. I could till the ground all I want to. And this is the curse of Cain. People are out here toiling. They're working all of their lives. And then at the end of their lives, they have nothing to show for it. That's really a curse in itself. God knows why. Because living a life of sin. All right. All right. Behold, thou hast driven me out this day from the face of the earth, and from thy face shall I be hid, and I shall be a fugitive and a vagabond in the earth. And should come to pass that everyone that findeth me shall slay me. All right. All right. So I told you all I was going to show you where God lifts that curse off the ground, from Genesis 3, when we read that. All right. And Noah built, and this was after the flood. Noah 8, oh goodness. Genesis 8, verse, let's see, 20. After the flood. All right. It says, and Noah built an altar unto the Lord, and took of every clean beast, of every clean fowl, and offered burnt offerings on the altar. All right. And the Lord smelled a sweet savor. And the Lord said unto his heart, I will not again curse the ground any more for man's sakes. For the imagination of man's heart is evil from his youth, neither will I again smite any more ever thing living, as I have done, while the earth remaineth. Seed time, harvest, and cold and heat, and summer and winter and day shall not cease. All right, so